Hi there, folks. This is WP-Tonic, episode 106. And I've got my beloved co-host. Introduce yourself, John.
Hello, my name is John Locke. I run a small WordPress consultancy called Lockdown Design.
Sounds great. You went that route, folks. So this is going to be part 2 of how to make your WordPress website into a speed machine. We had a great panel discussion on Saturday. If you go to show notes, that show 105 and the show notes, and it was a great discussion. But we ran out of time, folks. So we thought we'd give it another butchers, and we'll look at the elements that we didn't get time to really go into enough depth. So, John, I think we'll look at CDNs first. We did discuss them in show 105, but can you give the audience a brief outline what a CDN is?
Sure thing. What a CDN is that is an acronym for Content Delivery Network, and it allows browsers to download more components of a web page more quickly. How web browsers work right now is they can only download like one resource at a time from each domain. And what a CDN does is it allows you, like your users' browsers, to download from another domain. So you're downloading almost twice as fast because those resources aren't blocked. And usually you put stuff like your JavaScript, your CSS, and your images on the CDN.
Oh, that's great. We covered this extensively, folks, in show 105. So go and either look at the show notes or have a good old listen to the episode. It's great stuff. I'm going to take caching plugins. Well, like I say, we went through all the leading ones. One of the things I'll just point out, folks, is I've seen people have multiple caches. You know, their hosting provider's got a cache. They've got a cache plugin. Also, CDNs can do some caching. You can end up with a lot of caching, so you've got to keep that in mind. Would you agree with that, John?
I would. Give the folks at home just kind of a brief outline of if you can, of kind of what caching does.
Well, fundamentally, it kind of in temporary in the browser memory, it kind of puts a version of it. So if something doesn't change that regularly, it kind of watches, and then if it kind of checks things over a period of time, and you can adjust that, or some of these plugins or services. You have normal settings, but normally you can go in and flush it or set it. But they check the website to see if there are any changes. If it doesn't do that check, it brings up a stored version, and so it means the browser's not having to upload everything from the ground up, because you probably notice, folks, if you do flush out your browser, the cache, your passwords, all the kind of cache in your browser, and you load a page up, it normally takes a fair while. Am I explaining that reasonably, John?
Yeah, that sounds perfectly right. It's kind of like storing a snapshot of your site resources, and the things that haven't changed, like it just says, okay, that hasn't changed, and we'll just pull from right here.
Yeah, so. Let's quickly go for number 3, because but we did discuss that extensively. So I think one of the the other things we discussed, folks, we went into hosting and themes, and we're not going to discuss this now.
Yeah,
but optimize imaging. I think this is a biggie when it comes to speed, and a lot of people that are not professional web designers or developers, or some that say they are, you can get into a real pickle on this, can't you, with the sizes of images that you lined up. Can you give a quick explanation why this is important, John?
Well, yeah. So in the average web page, every byte of information, every piece of data that you have to download takes time. And the resources in your web page that take the longest to download, or I should say, make up the biggest component of most web pages are images, because that's all that data that makes up the photo. It's a lot more data than there is just in regular HTML or CSS or JavaScript. So optimizing your images or just uploading the correct size image to begin with will save you a lot of page weight and therefore make your page speed quicker. The people who are coming to your site, their browsers don't have to take as long to download.
Yeah, and I think John, and see if John agrees with it, I think the biggest problem is smartphones, Android, iPhone. People when you upload from your iPhone and from your smartphone, and you don't understand that much about resolution, folks. Those pictures are enormous, and they're like 2,000-3,000 pixels lengthwise, and God knows height. And then they go into your library, or you import them in your library, and then with WordPress you can crop them, but you're still so it looks okay, but you're actually uploading the original photo. Is that correct? That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that does happen a lot of time. There's many cases where you'll build the site and then the client will be, okay, I'm going to add photos to it. Why is this web page taking so long to upload? This page is really slow. And a lot of times it'll turn out they're taking a photo with their phone, and these photos are basically the same size as if you took them with a professional camera, uncropped, unresized, unoptimized, and just loading them directly into their site. So, and I don't know if you've ever sent like photos through the mail, like your email, like with your phone, but most of those are like approaching like 2 megabytes, just each photo. So yes, that can make a huge difference in your page speed right away.
Now, one of our great panel came up with a nice plugin. It's called Insanity, or Imsanity, IMSANITY, and it'll be in the show notes for this episode as well, folks. And Insanity automatically resize huge image uploads. It sounds pretty sweet. Have you actually used it yourself, John?
I have not used it, but I have seen this plugin before. The plugin image, you can't miss it. It is a free plugin in the WordPress plugin repo. So definitely something to check out. If it resizes those large files, then that's definitely something to check out.
And another one that came from the panel, Optimizilla, OPTIMIZILLA, and it's an online service, image optimizer, use smart combination. You can upload 20 image and it compresses them and does all sorts of things. And it looks like it's a free service, actually. Could be quite useful. Looks. I've never tried it myself, but I think I'll give that a butcher's as well. What do you reckon?
Optimizilla. That's definitely something to check out. And compressing, for those people in the audience that don't know what that means, say you've got a photo and you've got 100% of the information there. What compressing does is it takes out just little bits of information here and there that aren't going to affect the overall quality of the image. You can, remove like 10, 20, 30% of the information from the photo, and it's going to be indiscernible to the naked eye. But it's saving like, 10, 20, 30% of the weight of that image, of the file size. So
it's funny how things come back and go in website design and development in it, John, because when I first started, you used to have to go in Photoshop and spend hours optimizing your images, and then broadband hit, and you thought, oh, those days are gone. And now with the mobile back, they come back again, don't they, John?
Yeah, that's true. And we are living in a mobile-first society where way more than half of the total internet usage is on your phone. I mean, actually, that was almost 2.5 years ago where that tipping point began, where mobile outpaced desktop use. And now everybody has the phone in their hand from the minute they wake up until the minute they go to bed. So you have to optimize for mobile. Yeah.
Right, so let's go on to another one. There are websites, folks, that give you insights about what is turning your beloved website into a sloth. And one of the main one comes from the beloved Google, and it's page speed insights. But to make that totally happy is practically impossible. You got any insights about Google page speed and how you should treat what they're saying, John?
Okay, so with Google page speed insights, it's basically a guideline of what you should be doing. Most of the information there that you're going to find is good. It's going to give you like general advice, like, compress your images and make sure you're not render blocking, putting stuff like in the head of your document. This is kind of developer-y stuff. This is kind of developer-centric talk, but basically you don't want like files that have to download before the whole page can render in the top of the page. You want to put them toward the bottom, so JavaScript toward the bottom. It's going to tell you stuff like, here's some tips to make it faster, basically. Now, that being said, Google really pays attention to how long the page actually takes to render. And specifically, one of the most important things is the time to first byte. And part of that has to do with your server configuration. Part of that has to do with the way that your theme might be set up. But essentially, I would say about 85% of like what Google Page Speed Insights is telling you is correct. I will say this too, getting 100% on there is impossible if you use Google Analytics. If you use any sort of third-party, so let everybody know that. I'm going to say that one more time. There is no way to get like 100% in Google Page Speed Insights if you use Google Analytics or pretty much any third-party tool, like embedded like analytics code, because those things change. They don't have, they're not cached like on your server. They're cached on Google's server.
And the other thing you got, to see if John agrees with that, it's just a warning, folks. One of the other areas, depending on how your theme, I'm not going to go into all the kind of developer techie talk, folks, but one of the things is compress your CSS and your JavaScript. Mm-hmm. And there are third-party plugins that, if you do a Google search, folks, you can find, and they can do this. Do not do this on your live website, folks. Not a great idea. Normally, because cannot work out that well, the effects. And
test it somewhere first. Is that what you're saying, Jonathan? Test it somewhere?
Yeah, because sometimes you can't reverse it as well as you thought, which on a live site, especially if you ain't got an effective backup regime, ain't going to be a great ending for you, folks. So it depends if you've got backups, you've done a backup, you've got a test site that you're trying to use one of these plugins to compress all your CSS. And what I mean by compress is all the kind of white space in depending if the person that coded it up is nice and tidy, but then it depends on how the theme was developed. Sometimes they provide nice tidy worker theme developers. They provide a non-compressed file just so you can see that, and then they provide a compressed version, that type of thing. That's about right, isn't it, John?
Yeah. So, yeah, like when you're talking about compressing like HTML and JavaScript and CSS, and taking all the white space out of that. They sometimes call that like minification as well. And it's kind of the same thing what we talk about with the images, where you take out the information that's not needed. When you minify like your HTML, you're taking out all the code comments, you're taking out all the white space. And like, so your CSS or your JavaScript is just going to be like one continuous like string of characters. There's no white space. So if you minify, that's not really human readable. It's just a big smush of characters, but it still works. You're just taking out all the white space and saving a few more bytes.
So, but be careful with these third-party plugins because some of them work. You just got to try it out, folks. It depends. What would you say, excluding membership and e-commerce, let's say just a promotion website, how far, realistic in your experience, how high can you get it? Can you get it into the mid-90s or low 90s for the page speed Google?
I would say 90 that's a reasonable goal. I mean, definitely you want to get it like above 85 if possible. I mean, 90 is very reasonable. 90, low 90s is very reasonable. So
the other tool is, I don't know if you've got one that you like, but the one I use a little bit is Pingdom. Pingdom, tools.pingdom.com. I find their information quite useful. Is there anyone that you use?
Yes, I have used Pingdom in the past. And for the listeners at home, that is basically it. You can see how long it takes to download the site from a certain location, or and basically it tells you like how many milliseconds it takes to download your page, so you can get a real sense of how fast is my page actually downloading.
The only thing with it, some of the language is a bit techy, isn't it? But if you do a Google search, there's plenty of write-ups and info about what it means, isn't it?
Yeah,
so I think we'll go for our break, folks, and we'll be back with more advice on how to turn that sloth of a WordPress website into a speed cheater. We'll be back in a minute, folks.
Buying or selling a home in the greater Reno Tahoe area? I know the best CRS real estate broker, and that's Karen Conrad. And you can find her at KarenConrad.com or call her directly at 775-527-7021.
We're coming back. Like I say, it's all about how you turn that sloth into a cheater. Do you like that metaphors, John?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
I'm trying to be entertaining, John.
Sure. I want to mention, we were talking about, I'm sorry, I not mean to interrupt here, but I want to mention, like, there's two more tools that I want to mention when we're measuring, like, page speed really quick. There's one is the WP engine has, like, a speed test tool, and they're basically collecting your information. They'll try and contact you later, but they will give you an actual snapshot of your site, like as it's as it downloads, and then they'll give you some suggestions. The really cool thing is, like Pingdom, it'll give you how many seconds it takes to download. But there's two things it'll measure. It'll measure the above the fold, which how long that takes to download, which is like what's on the top of the screen, and then like the full page. And one other thing that you can do, too, if you're a developer, is go into Chrome Developer Tools. And I think it's like you go into either like Network or something like that. You go in there, you can see there's a certain setting where you go in. You can reload the page, and you can see what the time to first byte is. And again, I know that SEO Roundtable and a couple other places like Moz have written about this. Time to first byte seems to be the one speed metric that really has like an influence on PageRank. So
great stuff. Let's go on to useful tools. One I found, which will be in the show notes, it's Tomaz. WordPress Gonzales. I don't know where to get these words from, folks. I'm going to spell it out. It's WordPress -GONZALES and WordPress -Gonzales. And What it does, it's really cool. Because a lot I've found, and I'm just going to see if John agrees with this, that the nitty gritty of this, folks, is we've gone JavaScript potty. The industry, it's just gone bonkers about JavaScript for everything. jQuery, here we come, and nodes and all the rest of it. And you've got all these plugins and the theme and the plugins, and WordPress does come with its own version of jQuery and some of these other JavaScript libraries. But a lot of the time, for various reasons, understandable reasons, developers either call in external libraries, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a ton of scripts being called, and they tend to be called on every page, even if the page doesn't use that script. So what this plugin allows you, folks, is you can switch off individual scripts. It comes with an interface, and you can test it, and you can see if that script's been loaded, or it tells you if it isn't being used on that particular page, and then you can say, don't call it. That's not bad, is it, John?
That's pretty good. So say if I had a slider like on the home page, and
you wouldn't do that anyway, John, would you?
No, I wouldn't. But other people might. It happens quite often. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, say that you're coding up a page and you've got like this, slideshow, this carousel at the top of the home page. So this plugin that you're describing, it basically says only load the JavaScript for this slider on the home page. You can totally have that granular control.
Yeah, not bad, is it?
That sounds pretty awesome.
I haven't used it, but the person that recommended it seemed to know what it was talking about. So let's hope. But it's worth a go, isn't it? Not on your live site, folks. Don't try something.
Yeah. Remember, don't cowboy code. Have a staging server and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So let's have a look. Disable embeds. So basically, WordPress comes with it was the last couple of versions of WordPress, they come with embeds, and seemingly they can take up a bit of, so this one is called disable-embeds. Have you heard of that, John? Embeds?
I have not heard of that. I do know that like WordPress has the OEmbed, a feature now where you can drop in like a URL or embed like basically like a different page. You can embed, say, here's this other site and I want to embed it in this page, and here's like a little
that's what
they call like the card. Where
it's
like
a total pain in. It's a total. I'm not going to sound like an old grunch in there. I would just wish they had something on the tick box for each page so you could untick it, because half the time stuff starts appearing and I can't get rid of it, and I want to format it myself. Do you understand what I'm talking about, John?
I do know what you're talking about. Like, where you're dropping in stuff and basically almost like Facebook does, where you drop in a URL and then it'll pull in that card of like a mini card of that page. That's basically what the OEmbed feature on WordPress is doing now too.
Yes.
Kind of like Twitter is the same thing. It's the same thing.
But WordPress core team, this isn't Facebook, so give us an option, will you?
We got to compete with Facebook too.
Oh, God, on to the next one. Disable emotion cons. These horrendous, what do I call them? A smiley face and a...
we used to call them smileys back in the day.
What do you call them now?
And now we're calling them like emojis. Yeah.
Emoji. Yeah, well, that gets loaded, folks. Even if you probably don't even know what the hell we're talking about, but they're there and it's loading, and I don't know how much time you're going to save with, but it all helps, doesn't it, John? So there's a plugin. It'll all be in the show notes, folks. Disable WordPress emotion cons. It's called.
Yeah. So So I'll say this, like, so with the emojis, that's basically like a font, like that's loading like all the time. So if somebody like wants to put like type like a colon, like the parenthesis and make like a little smiley face, it loads that font. So this basically says don't load that font, and we can save like one more font file.
Look, can I tell you this story, John? I had a
Yeah,
client
go ahead.
about a year ago. That's how they used to communicate with me, by text. He used to sit on oh my God. Oh, I'm not crying one. That's how they used to. I'm not kidding you, folks. That's how they use it.
I think it's like the texting talk is like getting like really. It's gotten really creative, like with the flipping tables and the shrug. People are really creative. But I'm going to say this really quick, if I can interject. That reminds me of something else too.
John, you don't mean. I've got to explain. John's very polite to me. What he means is you're talking dribble, Jonathan. Can we get back onto the subject?
But what you're saying reminds me of something else. When you say like you don't want to load the emoji font, that's another thing too. Staying away from themes where you load up, a different font for every, every headline and like the body text. When you're setting up like a theme, if you're a developer, do kind of be cognizant of your Google fonts and how many you're using in your design. Don't load up like the entire, like 5 fonts and like every variation of that in your design.
What about these Swiss Army kit from certain marketplaces? I've got a feeling are they loaded, because they come with a load of. Are they loading all those fonts automatically? Do you think?
Well, if people select them, they give people the option to load a different font. Like, say, if you want like Open Sans, like extra bold on the headlines, and then let's say like Montserrat on the body text, but then on this other headline you want to load cap.
No, you don't go any further. It was making me feel ill, actually. Right. There you go, folks. Get one of those themes and have about 60 different freaking fonts loaded at once.
Watch your site bog down.
Sorry, folks, English sarcasm. Then we got something very linked to what you were saying about Google. It's called local host analytics. And I got a feeling it enables to run on your local, if you've got a version on your local machine, I don't know, I did read, folks, it's been a long day, but it's called Host Analytics CSJS-local. So I think it gives you either a local version, or it does something where the problem John was talking about, where you can never get close to 100 with Google, especially if you've got Google Analytics, which is quite funny, really, isn't it? One of their own products makes it practically impossible to get 100. This helps in some way. Well, I should have read it a bit more carefully. It came from the one of the better of our panel on Saturday. Do you know anything about this, John, or am I just waffling?
You're not waffling. You're actually introducing me to something that I didn't know about. And that seems that would be like a good time to test, like when you're still developing the site on your, local machine or your laptop or your, desktop computer, and seeing like, hey, like here's some areas that can be improved. That would be like a good time to like find that out, and not after you've launched it.
Yeah, I'm going to go through some resources now, folks, that if you do a Google search WordPress speeding up or WordPress, my WordPress site is like slow treacle or something like that.
Like molasses in January?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's the Gregory, I'm going to butcher his name, but they always, Coty, CIOTTI, Gregory Coty. If you do a search, he always comes almost up one in search, and it sparrenmind.com, speed up WordPress. He always comes up. I've read it a few times, the article, and it's not bad. It's mostly about how to deal with Google's page ranking. Another one that comes up, be a little bit, he's got a lot of plugins that he says do this, do that, do the other, which is fine. I wouldn't do it on your live site. All right. What do you reckon, John?
Always test on a developmental site before you port those changes to live. Don't experiment on your live site. Yes, definitely.
And then we got a regulars from Smash. I've read all this stuff numerous times, folks. So we've got articles on Smashing Magazine. It's from 2014, but I think it's been updated. How to speed up your WordPress website. That's not bad. And then another really popular one from the people that specialize in all those multi-site plugins, John.
WPML.
They're always
that's multi-language. WP I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, when you always do a search, it's like there's like 4 websites that always turn up, folks, and they've always got very extensive how to do's, and this one is the ultimate mega guide to speeding up your WordPress by Dianki Partaski, Polish, folks. So it's DANIEL. Aren't you happy, John, that I have to try and pronounce these names? Aren't you?
I'm pretty ecstatic about it, actually.
Yeah, I can tell the smile because I make a dog's breath of this, don't I? I get a few notes from you, beloved listeners, about my pronunciations. I'm very happy that it makes you laugh so much, folks. But it's a mega write-up, and it's not bad, folks. So I've given you kind of 3 kind of another one is from Brian Jack. I think it's workup.com. Brian Jackson, his name. He's been on a couple other podcasts, and he's spoken about. So it's WOORKUP.com, and he's got some good posts on that website with some good advice about how to turn that sloth into a cheetah. So, John, I think we've quickly gone through what we didn't manage on Saturday. Got any kind of ending comments?
Sure thing. One other thing I want to mention is if you're coding up a site, you can use a technique that was first talked about by Harry Roberts of Wizardry fame, and that is the DNS prefetch, where you save a few milliseconds by having the browser looking up the domain of certain resources. Use this sparingly. Don't go hog wild on it, but just look that up, DNS prefetch, Harry Roberts, and you'll get a better idea of what that is. So.
Do you use that when you're kind of getting close to that 92, 93 that you're aiming for, and you just can't do it?
That won't really show up in your Google PageSpeed Insights at all.
No.
It'll and depending on like how much you use it, it'll save you 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds there, here and there, because what it does is instead of having to look up the domain name when the browser goes to download the resources, it will just already look it up before it goes to try and render the page. And what this is good for, say if you've got resources from Google, like APIs, like you're using Google Fonts, or say you're using like Facebook for something, it will go and look up that domain name. For your own domain name, it doesn't need to look it up. It's just for external domains. So,
yeah, that can the DNS. Yeah, that can. It's sort of thing that comes with these checkers. I don't think Google Page looks into this, but some of the other checkers, we have all that. They do. One of the other factors is your DNS and how it's treated, folks. It's a bit techy. Probably have some links in it, but what John's talking about is an important factor. I forgot about that, because how your DNS is treated can, especially if it's not, there's something wrong, can really slow it down, can't it, John?
That's true. And depending on like what say if you had a site and you were linking to Google, like analytics or something like that, and say it was like in the head of your like HTML document. And so let's say Google Analytics was like completely down. That would be looking for that, file to render the page. So depending on like what you link out to assemble your page, it can affect like how long it takes for your page to render. So it's just one of those things you want to like just shave like a few extra bytes here and there. So I would say tackle all the other things first, then start looking at like little things like that.
Yes, that's great news. All right, and folks, thanks for listening. Do remember, folks, go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, and please give us a review on iTunes. All you have to do is either click the 5 stars or there's another button nearby and you can write up a little review, and that would be gracious. And why not join us on Saturdays at, between 10 a.m. and 12 noon Pacific Standard Time on Blab IM. We have a great panel every Saturday of WordPress experts. We love people joining us on Blab and leaving their comments, questions, need any help. In the second hour, if Blab doesn't blow up, we normally try and help people out. And I won't be there this Saturday. I'm going down to Orange County, folks. So John's going to be on his own. Do you think
flying solo?
Right, see you next episode, folks. Bye. Say goodbye, John.
Goodbye.